It's 1974. There's carolers at the door. There's some bodies in the attic, and the phone will not stop ringing. That's right. On this episode of Open Mic Night of the Living Dead, we're tackling Bob Clark's horror slasher classic, Black Christmas. Cue those sleigh bells.
The creature's creeping right behind you. I hope you finally find a little slice of peace and light. 'Cause it comes crashing down tonight. Welcome to the open mic. When we call your name, you'll die. But there's no need to dread. This is the open mic night of the living dead.
That was a good intro.
Hey, thanks.
You worked on that a little bit beforehand, huh? Just a little.
I've had 51 years to do it,
That's true. You have.
minus the difference in age.
Right. Yeah. That the years you were not yet born. But perhaps you were working on it from the spirit world.
I was. In fact, I actually partially wrote this movie
Oh, wow. That, I could see that.
from my ghostly plane. My ghostly plane.
I'm here for this. I'm backing you up, but you have to keep going.
I'm John.
I'm Rachel.
This is Open Mic Night of the Living Dead.
Sure is.
And like I said, we're talking about 1974's Black Christmas, produced and directed by Bob Clark, written by Roy Moore. What are your initial memories of this film?
You told me about 3 years ago that we were going to watch a movie called Black Christmas, and I had never heard of it before. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Sure. And then we watched it, and I learned a little bit about how awesome it was and its place in the horror history. But we watched this at the very beginning of our journey that started a few years ago.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the same for me. I can't remember if I watched it once before we watched it together, or if when we watched it, that was my first watch. I don't know. But yeah, it's fairly new in my world of horror fandom. But now I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and every time I watch it, I love it more.
Agreed. I have become an even bigger fan this time around than I was before.
Well, this was another low budget fare for the most part. Not as low as some, but kind of higher low, you know?
A higher low. Yeah, along the same veins as Halloween, right?
Yes, similar. I don't remember the numbers on that. But this was a Canadian film with a budget of $686,000 in 1974 money, which is about $4.5 million today. And in its initial run in Canada, it made $1.3 million, which is about $8.5 million today. So it certainly recouped its budget and then some. Not only did it have its release in Canada, it was released in Toronto in October of 1974. It actually had 2 U.S. releases, but it didn't do phenomenally well in the United States. In its first run in December of 1974, it was up against The Godfather Part 2, and of course James Bond in The Man with the Golden Gun, Shaken Not Stirred. Part 4? No, I don't know what part it was. But so that first run, it didn't do great. It had a second run from like August to December of 1975 in the United States.
That's a long run.
Yeah, well, I think it started in like just a few theaters, and then because it had some decent success in those few theaters, it kind of branched out. It was scheduled in like 70 theaters, but it did poorly enough that 58 of those locations canceled their bookings. So the theatrical run in 1975 in the U.S. made less than $1 million in 1974 money. So not great, not horrible, but it wasn't a smash, I guess, is my point. Though it was the 3rd highest grossing Canadian film of all time up to that point, behind The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz.
Oh, of course. The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz.
Your favorite?
Yeah, I talk about it all the time.
I'm pretty sure Duddy Kravitz is Lenny Kravitz's father.
You might be right. I have no idea at all.
Is Lenny Kravitz Canadian? He might be. I don't know. I should have looked it up. I'll look it up someday. The other movie that was a high-grossing Canadian film was the French language De Femme en Or.
Of Woman of Gold?
Of Women of Gold.
Of Women in Gold?
It's the de is D-E-U-X, which is two, right?
Okay, so two women.
Two women on gold.
Two women of gold, maybe. Or made of gold. Made of gold?
Oh, maybe.
Two golden women?
Well, we've got two golden movies that are from Canada that we need to see, apparently.
Yeah, The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz. Duddy Kravitz is played by Richard Dreyfuss. So.
Oh, that would have been just like the year before Jaws.
Oh, interesting.
He was prepping.
Yeah, it's a comedy drama.
A comedy.
Mm.
And then there was a theatrical release last year in 2024 to commemorate the 50th anniversary in December in a restored 4K format that you didn't tell me about, so I didn't get to see it, and I'm kind of bummed out about that.
I mean, they wasn't necessarily near us.
I mean, I guess it depends on which theater was running it, but usually on those, at least one theater somewhere in our vicinity has it.
True. I'm sorry that we missed it. Somehow I'm apologizing for that thing I had nothing to do with.
Here's something else that's crazy around the time of its release is that in January of 1978, so still pre-Halloween, they were going to release, or do you say release on television? Debut. They were going to do the television debut of the film under the title Stranger in the House. And it was set to make its network television premiere for NBC's weekly Saturday Night at the Movies. However, 2 weeks before this airing, there was a double murder at the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University, and two others were violently attacked but survived. And come to find out, that was all done by Ted Bundy.
Oh, man, that's an interesting connection.
And so basically, shortly before the TV premiere, Florida's governor contacted NBC and requested the movie not be shown due to the similarities between the theme of the movie and the murders at the sorority house. So NBC gave some of its affiliates in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama the option of showing an alternate film, another one of your favorites, Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze. Right,
Man of Bronze, Women of Gold. I see where we're going here.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that. That's pretty good. I love the subtitles on some of these movies that weren't sequels. Like, you see it in sequels now, but not usually as like a lone film. Unless maybe that is a sequel, Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze. Oh, I didn't even mention, so they were going to release it under Stranger in the House for the TV broadcast, but in the first U.S. run back in 1974, they actually changed the title for that as well. Did you see what they were calling it for its first release in the United States?
Silent Night, Evil Night.
Which is pretty close to what our next movie is going to be.
It is. I was surprised by that, but I didn't see why they named it that.
They were afraid that the title would mislead audiences into believing it was a blaxploitation movie.
Oh.
Which I think was a pretty popular subgenre back then. But I want to see that audience member who was going to Black Christmas expecting a blaxploitation movie and instead getting a house full of sorority girls. But I think they'd still enjoy it. I don't know. I wasn't there in 1974.
I don't know enough about blaxploitation as a subgenre.
Next season.
Put it on the list.
The film received mixed reviews during its initial release, and I would say leaning towards the negative, which kind of surprises me because 4 years later, Halloween would get a bunch of positive reviews for the most part, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
These are both slashers, but this film has a lot more sexual overtones and I think is a bit more shocking in terms of the deaths that are shown on camera.
I guess that's true. there is more violence shown.
Right. I mean, even though there's a lot that isn't shown, I think Halloween is a little less edgy. I mean, even just dialogue-wise, some of the dialogue stuff that happens.
Except Halloween had nudity and this movie does not.
I know, but somehow this one feels edgier and kind of a little bit grimier.
I guess that's a good point.
So I can see why maybe it was less accepted into the mainstream. I mean, Halloween certainly had its detractors, but I think this one, and especially this one, also has some more overtly feminist kind of alternative messages. And I don't think Halloween had that as much. Even though Halloween also had strong female characters, I don't think it was as forward as it is in this one.
Well, A.H. Weiler of the New York Times called it a whodunit that raises the question as to why was it made. That's kind of rude.
That's awful.
Mr. Weiler. Variety called it a bloody, senseless kill-for-kicks feature that exploits unnecessary violence in a university sorority house operated by an implausibly alcoholic ex-hoofer. Its slow-paced, murky tale involves an obscene telephone caller who apparently delights in killing the girls off one by one, even the hapless house mother.
Did this person watch the movie? The same movie?
I'm not sure. There's no such thing as implausible alcoholic.
Well, maybe in the 70s.
I guess.
That's not the case. I don't know. Anytime like senseless violence, I don't know. I just don't. Maybe I just am too open-minded about my horror movies, or maybe I just see too much into them. But
Siskel, Genie Boy.
Yes.
Gave the film 1.5 stars out of 4, calling it a routine shocker that is notable only for indicating the kind of junk roles that talented actresses are forced to play in the movies. What a hero for women.
What a dork. That's a dumb take. That is a dumb take. The actresses in this film do an amazing job with the roles they're given, and they're meaningful, and which we'll get into in a little while. But yeah, sorry, Siskel. And history has proven him wrong, because this has become one of the most beloved and highly ranked horror films, especially slashers, and is one of the 3 potential first slashers that there's always a lot of debate about.
Well, yeah, as we know now, that it certainly has been, well, I'll say reevaluated, but that's not exactly the word I'm looking for. But it certainly has experienced
like a renaissance?
No.
Nope, that's not the word. Rebirth, which is just renaissance.
When people look at it and reevaluate it and find it positive now when they didn't before, but doesn't matter.
I mean, I think renaissance might be it, but that's okay. Maybe not.
This movie's certainly been reevaluated over the years, and it's, like you're saying, a lot more positive now. There's 71% approval rating, critics' approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and Heidi Martinuzzi of Film Threat called the film innovative and praised the leading actresses, Olivia Hussey and Margot Kidder.
Agree with that.
And it is ranked in a bunch of top horror movies of all time, top 100s, top 50s, top 75s. Complex Magazine named it the second best slasher film of all time. Paste had it as third best slasher of all time, and ranked Jess Bradford as the number 1 final girl in their list of 20 best final girls in horror movie history.
She's up there for me. We'll get into that, but I'm a fan of Jess Bradford.
And of course, like a lot of these old slashers, we should just have a collection of these. It spawned a novelization in 1976. There's the 2006 and 2019 remakes. They're both loosely based on the original, but sort of diverge from it. And there's a couple of fan films, too, that I read about that I'm interested in called It's Me, Billy. The first one came out in 2021, and a sequel came out in 2023. I've been kind of poking around with some fan films in different franchises, like the Never Hike Alone series for Friday the 13th. So maybe we'll check those out this season.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
I don't know if they're Christmas related or not. I guess they probably are, huh?
They have to at least take place then, right?
I would assume so.
Well, I guess we'll have to find out.
And if you were going to the movies in 1974 and you wanted to see a horror film that was not Black Christmas, I'm always amazed at how long the lists are for horror movies, even back in the day. So I've picked out a selection of movies for us that we might be interested in. First is Bad Ronald, which is another like guy hiding out in a house movie, I guess, from what I understand. I've tried not to read too much about it. The Bat People, Beyond the Door, which I mentioned back in the Exorcist episode. That's one of those Italian sort of knockoff of The Exorcist. It's pretty fun. Then another Bob Clark movie, which I think maybe this is the U.S. release date, 1974, because I also saw it as 1972, but Death Dream.
Okay, that had a different name too.
Yeah, and I've seen it before. Pretty good. We should watch it sometime.
I just added it to my list while doing research for this movie.
And there's Frightmare, From Beyond the Grave, that has David Warner and Donald Pleasance in it, which I've never heard of that movie, but it sounds awesome if it has those actors. I'm a fan.
Yeah, seriously.
Horror High. Next is It's Alive, the Larry Cohen movie that we watched with the crazy weird baby situation.
Yes.
If you haven't seen that and you like crazy weird movies, that's a good one.
It's a good one.
In fact, Larry Cohen's got a string of weird movies, but that was one you could have caught in the theater in 1974. There's a Filipino movie called Kill Barbara with Panic, which I thought was up the alley for Night of the Living Dead and your feelings about Barbara. You're telling her to chill out. You never thought of just having her die from her anxiety. That would have...
Yeah. I haven't thought about that. That's pretty cool.
And then Lisa and the Devil, which I've seen. It's a Mario Bava film. Phantom of the Paradise I have not seen is an older Brian De Palma film.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I've heard good things. That would have been, I think, the year before Carrie. And then we would be doing a disservice talking about 1974 and slasher films if we did not mention the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
And lastly, I have Young Frankenstein by Mel Brooks, starring Gene Wilder.
Oh, neat.
So still a fun year for horror fans back in 1974. But that's pretty much what I've got on the general reception. I think from here on out, we might be talking spoilers. So if you've not seen Black Christmas, now's a great time to pause and go give it a watch. I'm not sure where it's streaming, but usually this time of year you can find it in a couple of places. But you're welcome to listen if you haven't watched it as well.
Yeah, I also do think when you quoted that review earlier, even in the review, it gave things away. How come reviewers give things away?
I don't know. Trailers give everything away nowadays.
Remember before we used to watch movies seriously, we would watch lots of trailers, and now we never watch trailers because it ruins the movies.
Yep. But either way, spoilers here on out.
You covered some of the ratings. Are we doing ratings?
I gave the 71% on
Critics for Tomatoes and on Metacritic, right? IMDb, it's a 7.1.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty high.
Yeah, once you get in the sevens, I feel like it's good. I feel like that could be a smidge higher.
76% viewers on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a 3.8 on Letterboxd, which is also fairly high for horror. What about your rating?
Well, my personal rating would be, I think it was like an 8 or an 8.5. I don't have it in front of me. It was definitely at least an 8.
Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 on mine, so.
And what about on our 3-tier system? 1, trash. 2, the general majority of horror films that we enjoy. And 3 being fantastic, great, genre-changing sort of movies.
3, definitely.
Yeah, I had very little doubt about that myself.
Definitely a 3. We should probably be keeping track of these because we've been watching so many good movies to start with, right? That I think we've had a disproportionate number of 3s so far on the podcast. And I think as time goes on, we will have more 2s because we say 2s are most of the movies that we watch, but we've been talking about a lot of 3s.
Well, that's kind of how we set it up at the beginning too, was to cover a lot of the classics. But yeah, no, I agree. That sounds like a you job.
You mean spreadsheets? Yeah, that's me.
Do we have anything else on the reception? Or
I think the only other note I had was that Black Christmas was Elvis's favorite horror movie.
Elvis, Hunka Hunka Burnin' Elvis.
Yep, that one.
I had actually read somewhere that Steve Martin was a fan because, I think it was a quote from Olivia Hussey. She ran into him somewhere along the way and he told her, hey, you star in one of my favorite movies of all time. And she just thought he meant the Romeo and Juliet movie she was in. And he was like, no, Black Christmas. And he told her he had seen it 27 times or something like that. So
that's crazy.
So lots of stuff. Lots of fans, I should say. Lots of stuff.
So much stuff.
All right. Should we carry on into story time?
Let's do it.
All right. Here we go. Billy came into the bedroom. It was Barbroom's. It was her doom. Bow. I'll probably get sued.
You must have planned that one.
Slightly.
Okay.
Only like a tiny bit. But it did come into my head spontaneously when it happened.
That's pretty good. I like that a lot.
And then I brought it here today.
I'm so glad you did.
To share with you.
Thank you so much. It's story time. I have a brief summary of our story.
Please.
As the residents of Pi Kappa Sigma sorority house prepare for their Christmas break, a stranger begins to harass them with a series of obscene phone calls. And that really is most of the movie.
And again, kind of comparing it to Halloween, I remember when you gave the summary for that, we were noting the simplicity.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times can go a long way. This is definitely a little bit more complex than Halloween. More
characters, more confusion, not confusion necessarily, but more questions about what's going on. It's a little more Giallo in that way.
More ambiguity.
And that is one of the differences from Halloween. It is a slow burn though. It's a slow burn, which I think is one of the biggest complaints I've seen on the internet about it from people who are used to more modern slashers.
For sure. Although, if you're used to watching some of these older movies, it's not the slowest of slow burns.
I thought the pacing was great.
Yeah, so did I. This time that we watched it, I've felt it feel slow in the past, but it moved at a clip for me this time. And maybe it was just the mood and the setting in which we watched it, but I was fully sucked in.
I think this is the third time I've seen it. Definitely the second, but I thought the third. I couldn't find the first time that I watched it, but I think I understood it and kind of absorbed more of the story this time than I have in the past. Do you want to talk a little bit about production?
Yeah, I've got some production filmmaker stuff.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Of course, we mentioned a couple of times it was directed by Bob Clark, which I think it's important to mention him. He's brought us a few classics and really has started a few genres almost, a few subgenres, unintentionally maybe, but he was responsible for some of the most successful films in Canadian film history. Of course, Black Christmas in 1974, Tribute in 1980, Porky's in 81, and A Christmas Story in 1983. He also directed the Porky sequel, which I think was 82. But he was born in Nolens, even though he had this much Canadian success back in 1939. He grew up mostly in Birmingham, Alabama, and later in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And what I read noted that he grew up poor. His father died during his childhood, but I didn't see a lot of additional information on any of that. He had a fairly extensive academic career. I don't know the timeline. I don't know if he spent a lot of time at each of these schools, but he first studied philosophy at Catawba College in North Carolina. Then he attended Hillsdale College in Michigan on a football scholarship, where he played quarterback. And he eventually studied theater at University of Miami, the Florida Miami, not Ohio. He turned down offers to play pro football, but did have a brief stint playing semi-pro for the Fort Lauderdale Black Knights. My favorite team. I'm always, almost all my clothes is Fort Lauderdale Black Knights memorabilia.
Yeah, it sure is.
I've never heard of that team. It probably does not exist anymore. I could have looked it up, but I didn't. His career began in the late 60s, with transition to horror in the early 70s, his first feature film being Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things in 1972.
Did you see the name of the movie he did before that?
I did, but I don't remember.
She-Man, A Story of Fixation.
Interesting.
A soldier is forced to take estrogen and wear lingerie when he's blackmailed by a violent transvestite, which is from 1967. And so I have never heard of that movie or anything like it, but I wonder, that is fascinating, and I am now interested.
He seems like he was ahead of his time, this Bob Clark.
Well, yes, and the fact that most people know him from A Christmas Story, non-horror people, right? And that this is where he got his start. Like so many of the directors we see, they kind of start in the dirtier, darker, scarier side of the pool and then kind of move to the other side and make movies like A Christmas Story and Baby Geniuses later on in life.
And he had moved to Canada because it was a tax haven for Americans. But this also made him a big fish in a small pond of the Canadian film industry during that time. The movies he was making were sort of small by Hollywood standards, but Canadian standards were a huge success. He also was the executive producer for a moonshine movie called Moonrunners, which was the source material for the Dukes of Hazzard TV series.
Oh, wow.
Clark, along with others, won a $17.5 million settlement after they sued Warner Brothers over the 2005 Dukes of Hazzard movie.
Good for him.
But like you mentioned, sort of some of the last stuff he was involved with were a couple of the Baby Geniuses movie, which I don't think are very highly regarded, but can I make a confession here today?
Yes.
I've never seen A Christmas Story.
What?
At least start to finish.
Okay.
But I'm going to change that this year.
I think we should, especially given all the love we have for Black Christmas. I think I saw it. I think I didn't see it until I was 18 or 19. I grew up in a really religious family, so we didn't see horror movies or secular Christmas movies all that often. And so I didn't see it till I was older. But I didn't realize that you'd never seen the whole thing.
Nope, I have not. It seems like it'd be up my alley, too.
I definitely saw clips from it more than I've seen the actual movie itself.
It came out the year I came out. And...
Shut up.
But really, if you think about it, if you're considering Black Christmas as a huge inspiration for slasher films, he's responsible for that. Porky's really ignited the teen sex comedy craze and subgenre. And then A Christmas Story was really, like you said, one of the first big secular Christmas movies that sort of looked at Christmas, like the family Christmas experience, as imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
But tragically, Bob Clark died alongside his 22-year-old son in a car crash on the Pacific Coast Highway in April 2007. So, cut short a bit.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And in terms of the production of this movie, it was initially developed by Canadian screenwriter Roy Moore. And did you see what the original title was?
The Babysitter.
Oh, that's not what I saw. The original screenplay was titled Stop Me.
What I saw was that it originated as a screenplay called The Babysitter, written by Roy Moore, transformed by Timothy Bond, who shifted it to a sorority house, and then its working title was Stop Me by the time it got to Bob Clark. So there was like a journey.
I did see that it was originally that producers had Timothy Bond come in for a rewrite to give it the university setting. So maybe I got some of the titles misordered when I was looking through it. That makes more sense because some of the inspiration came from the urban legend known as The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs.
Yep.
Which we rewatched Urban Legend not that long ago.
Yes.
So I thought it was interesting because they delve so much into urban legends in that movie.
Yeah, I have a whole section on that. I mean, it's not like a whole section, but in themes, because that theme of the call coming from inside the house came from that urban legend, right? And there's been a lot of movies that have used that since then.
Of course. Moore also claimed to have been inspired by a series of murders that occurred during the holiday season in the Westmount area of Montreal in 1943, where a 14-year-old boy bludgeoned several of his family members. You know, classic Christmas tale. But like you said, Timothy Bond gave it a rewrite, and then along the way, Bob Clark also made some alterations to the dialogue, incorporating humorous elements like the drunkenness of Barb and Mrs. Mack. And did you see that Mrs. Mack was supposedly...
Yes, based on his aunt.
Yes.
Which I was going to get to in the character section.
Sorry.
Jump in the gun.
Some of these crossover. But I let you say it, though. Did you see that?
Yeah, you did. You did.
I paused and let you say it. Even though it was
the wrong section.
I don't know. It's about the script. And Clark felt that college and high school students had not really been depicted very realistically in American film and wanted to capture the astuteness of young adults, which I thought was, a good take on it and certainly gives more dimension to some of these characters. I can't say I'm particularly familiar with a lot of films pre-1974 that featured college and high school students, but you certainly even see that to this day still, where they're sort of given shallower depth.
Yeah.
That's about it I have on production. Aside from a bit of the filming, it was shot from March 25th to May 11th of 1974.
Do you remember when we were watching it and I said, do you know where we are geographically?
Oh, yeah.
And you said...
I said Christmas?
Yes. I said, where are we geographically? Trying to identify it from the foliage and the kinds of plants in the background, because that's what I do as a plant nerd. And you said Christmas, which was not wrong, I guess.
Well, come to find out, it takes place in a town called Bedford in an unnamed United States state.
I can think of 4 Bedfords right now.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's necessarily supposed to be any of those.
A specific Bedford, right, right.
It's just like The Simpsons. This is where The Simpsons got that idea.
Right, they have Springfields. Yep, that makes sense.
It's kind of like an Anytown, USA, somewhere where they get snow at Christmas time.
And have a college. Because...
But while the sorority house in the movie was located at 6 Belmont Street, the actual house is located at 6 Clarendon Crescent in the South Hill neighborhood of Toronto. And additional photography was shot on the University of Toronto campus. I also saw there might have been some photography done in Ontario, but I couldn't get any additional information on that. During the preparation for the 1975 American release, so the second U.S. run, Warner Brothers studio executives approached Clark. They wanted him to change the final scene. Did you see this?
No.
So you remember Chris, Claire's boyfriend, the hockey goalie?
Yeah.
Who kind of helps in the investigation for the second half of the movie?
Yes.
They wanted him to appear in front of Jess and say, in the final scene, they wanted Chris to appear in front of Jess and say, Agnes, don't tell them what we did before killing her. But thankfully, Clark insisted on keeping the ending more ambiguous.
That would have messed everything up. So their plan was for Chris, Claire's boyfriend, to be the older brother of Jess, who's actually Agnes?
I don't know.
Just have him be Billy?
Just have him be Billy.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about this older brother thing you're talking about.
Bob Clark, because Billy talks about, don't tell mom and dad what we did, Agnes.
Oh, yeah.
So, Billy is, and Bob Clark has said a few times in a few interviews about that, Billy did something to his sister, but his sister didn't like it. And, he probably kept his parents in the basement and he probably killed them too. He hasn't said anything definitively, but Billy and Agnes are brother and sister, which I think is implied in the movie.
Right.
Sort of. But
so you're not saying that, Jess is Agnes.
That's just what I thought for a second that you were saying.
No.
Which would
They just wanted to make a real, have there be a killer.
have their and give right.
Because Chris is still standing at the end.
Which would have made it so much weaker, because that's one of the cool things about this movie is that it's not about the killer, which makes it really different.
Absolutely.
From Halloween. Which is funny because it's like a proto-slasher, but it has it deviates a lot from what eventually does become the slasher genre, even though it founds it. Cool. I think that's all. I don't think I had anything else for the production.
No, me neither.
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
excited to hear about the characters. I love the characters in this movie.
Character development is wild in this movie. It basically is like 90% character development. And one of the things that we love about modern slashers is when they make us care about the characters. And when they don't, when the characters are just shallow caricatures who are just there as fodder, it often takes away from, at least for me, the enjoyment of a slasher. A good slasher, for me, you got to care about the characters. And we do care about these people.
And that's where a slasher becomes sort of what maybe the non-horror community views all slashers to be, sort of the stereotype that you're rooting for the people to be killed. And I don't think there are many movies where I actually feel that way, but it is when the character development is weak that it treads into that territory.
There was at least one character in this movie that I wasn't unhappy when he died.
Well, sure, that's fair.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
He actually had second billing, so we'll talk about him pretty soon. But I'll just kind of start at the top because there's a lot of really cool characters and actors. But Jess Bradford, our final girl, played by Olivia Hussey, who, as you already mentioned, she was cast in Romeo and Juliet at age 15. Did you watch Romeo and Juliet in high school?
I didn't, but
version?
almost everybody did, right?
How did you not watch it? Because there's a boob or two, if I remember correctly. That was like the
illegal
big deal.
boobs, right?
Yeah, she was 15. So
I've only heard tell, but no, a lot of the classes did.
But not yours.
And we did not watch it, but a lot of the other classes did.
I think all of the English classes watched it, and it was on one of those classroom TVs, on like the brown plastic carts with the VCR underneath.
Yeah. I mean, how else are they getting TVs around back then?
I know. But I'm just saying, for those who did not go to high school in the 90s, now teachers just play DVDs and internets on the screens. They're all
have
screens.
The smart screens and
stuff.
Oh
my goodness. Yeah. No, we did not have that. We had the VCR rolled into the room. It was the same VCR that we watched everything on, and we did not watch all that many movies in English class.
Teacher did not know how to run it either.
No.
Always had to be a kid in the class who got things started.
Yeah. I can't remember if my 9th grade English teacher knew how to run it. He's a pretty sharp guy. I actually went to visit him last year. He is in his 80s now, and I reached out to him and went and visited him and caught up, and he's retired on a farm, and he remembered me, and it was pretty cool. Is
he a listener?
I don't know if he's the listener. I should send him a copy. He might get a kick out of it. I don't think he would be surprised that I would be talking about English majory type stuff and horror films. I think he saw some of the short stories I wrote in high school. So anyway, Jess Bradford, Juliet, in Romeo and Juliet. She had a really long career after this, but I think Black Christmas and Romeo and Juliet were kind of her big ones. She had 3 marriages. Her first marriage was to Dean Martin's son, Dean Paul Martin. And she had a son with him who is also an actor. So very Hollywood royalty, it seems, just very, very connected. And her other 2 husbands, I believe, were also actors. I thought she was South African because of her accent. I could not figure it out. But she is not South African. She has an Argentinian father who was an opera singer, and an English-Scottish mother. She spent her early youth in Buenos Aires because her father was a singer. So
Did you come across her daughter?
I did. Her daughter's also an actor, right?
Yeah, she's in a horror movie that I saw a couple of years ago that I think is wintry. So maybe I'll put it on the list for this month and the next coming winter months.
I did notice that she was born, I think, in the early 90s. So she's a lot younger than us. I was surprised at that for some reason. I guess timeline, I was having a tough time. But anyway, she's beautiful. Jess is a really cool character.
Phenomenal character.
Just so cool. And kind of our original final girl, although we also said that about Laurie Strode. So,
and Sally from Texas Chainsaw Massacre also gets that.
Right.
But if you asked me right now, my number 1 final girl of all time, Jess would be in the running for sure.
I like Jess a lot. She's pretty fantastic. Jess is pregnant with her boyfriend's baby. She doesn't seem to like her boyfriend very much, and it's really obvious why, because he's a total dick. So I wrote, when we get to Peter, who's next, I will tell you all of the things I wrote in my notes about Peter. But Jess and Peter are in a relationship. She doesn't want to have the baby. She wants to have an abortion, which in 1974, I was like, oh, was that kind of cool then? I didn't think so. And no, it was very rarely talked about. And the fact that Jess goes to Peter and tells him that she doesn't want to keep the baby, that she has dreams and ambitions. He does not care about her dreams and ambitions. Peter knows what he wants to do, and that is to destroy things and be a big jerk face. So just being pregnant, though, that very basic piece of her character is a subversion of our traditional or our usual final girl kind of pure aspect, right? That even though she's one of the first final girls, she's clearly not a virgin. She does have the line, "This is a sorority house, not a convent," at one point, which is funny. So she's not overtly sexual and kind of really bad like Barb, who we will also get to. Like she is a woman in college who knows what she wants. She's in love with an artist, poor thing, and she has to put up with him and all of his stuff. She does, I don't know, kind of put up with a little more than I would want her to, especially when he kind of starts bossing her around. But she continues to reassert herself.
Well, obviously there must have been something about him when they got together, which happens in plenty of relationships over time. Somebody really reveals their true colors over time.
Oh, and she makes excuses for him, which kind of come from, I think, what she does love about him, which is his passion and his wanting to be a concert pianist and having ambition. She really liked those things about him. But he does not respond well when she says, "I'm pregnant and I don't want to keep the baby."
I had also put in my notes, she's kind of like the ultimate in being present. And also she's super like emotionally mature.
Yes.
But I just remember in all the chaos that's sort of going on over these couple of days, when the carolers arrive, she like stops and tries to enjoy the carolers.
Oh, yeah.
While they're there, and then gets back into the action, and not in an unnatural or weird movie-like way, but just it seemed really true to her character.
I agree. That's a really good point. Her ability to be present. We also see who she is through all the decisions that she makes. We get to see when she runs back into the house, and I'm not sure, I wrote notes about this. I must have put it somewhere in themes, but I mean, since we're talking about Jess runs back into the house to save her friends. She doesn't escape she doesn't try to leave the house to escape the killer. And we can talk more about that because there's a few other characters involved here, but she's not like an idiot girl running up the stairs when she should be running out the front door, like Sydney might say, right? Like she runs back upstairs with a purpose. She's loyal to her friends. She has a lot of really great characteristics great qualities as a character. She's just go, boundary up. Yeah, she is the anti-Barbara, I wrote. She does not get panicked by the situation. Although she does get a little panicky on the phone when she picks it up and the moaner is on the other line and she's like, "Who are you? Who are you?" She's very emotional about that. But
she keeps having to answer the phone half the time for those calls.
True.
Did you see why Olivia Hussey signed on to this film?
I didn't.
Or at least was rumored to. I can't believe half the stuff on the internet, but supposedly she signed on to the film after being told by a psychic that she would make a film in Canada that would earn a great deal of money.
I did see a few things about her referencing her psychic.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty neat. Well, and it didn't not make her money.
Right.
It's one of her most famous movies. Let's talk about Peter, who's played by Keir Dullea. I don't know how to say his name.
I think I've heard Keir
Dullea. He played David Bowman in 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968.
I love that movie too.
Yeah, he was, and then also had a role in Bunny Lake is Missing, which is a movie from 1965 that I like the title of that I wrote down. Peter is just a twat from beginning to end. Like and you can tell at one point he says, "I love you" to Jess, and she says, "I know."
And I was thinking about that because I had written that down in my notes as we were watching. Didn't that happen in one of the Star Wars movies?
Yes, dear.
Do you think Harrison Ford stole that from Olivia Hussey? Because he improv'd that line.
I wonder, you're right, because that was after, for sure. I wonder if anybody's ever asked him about that.
Well, first time I meet him, actually, I'm not going to bring that up. I feel like Harrison Ford might punch me, and I love him.
He might. I don't think that you should ask that. But very clearly, Jess is not as into Peter as he is into her. Although I'm not sure Peter actually does love her. I think he loves the idea of her. I think he loves the idea of this little life that he's got all planned out where she does what he wants and has the baby. And this is not about... I am not coming down on one side or another for her decision to have the baby or not have the baby. What I take issue with is his assumption that he gets to decide all by himself. When she says, I don't want to have the baby, and he says, I want us to have a baby. Like, he just keeps talking about what he wants. Like, he shows up later and says, I figured it all out. We're going to get married and it's going to be great. And she's like, excuse me? Like he doesn't come to the conversation and say, oh my goodness, I really want a child with you. He just comes in kind of like, what did I write down? Selfish prick, classic narcissist. And then he like flips it on her. Haven't you thought of anyone but yourself? Like the reversal, right, of someone who's so absorbed in themselves that they can't imagine somebody wanting something other than what they want. Oh my goodness. Can you tell Peter triggers me just a little bit?
I like to sometimes play the devil's advocate, as you know, sometimes for humor and sometimes from more like a philosophical exercise. I got nothing for Peter.
There's no redeeming characteristics.
But on the note of that scene where he says that we're going to get married, and I really liked Jess's response in that, and I don't have the exact lines, but at first she kind of says it in a less direct way. You know, she has her ambitions and she wants to continue to follow her ambitions. And then he says something again to basically be like, well, you can do that, but we're going to be married. And then she says, I don't want to marry you. Yeah.
So she said, I have the first line. You can't ask me to give up all my ambitions and dreams just because your plans have changed.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And I think, and then I wrote, go Jess, go, boundary up. Like she very directly, but not unkindly, right? Like she's so polite to him the whole time. She is giving a master class in how to deal with an emotionally immature person. She does not give in to his demands or try to make him feel better about himself, but she's also not unnecessarily cruel or argumentative. She stays calm, even when she eventually thinks he's trying to kill her. She gets a little less calm, I guess.
She's like, can we talk about this like adults?
Yeah, she's so great. She's really wonderful. Peter, though, can't play the piano either. As a pianist, I took great offense.
Or it was very avant-garde.
Yeah, so I wrote down, I was like, why are they showing us his audition? Like, it must be as part of character development, also for the tone and the vibes, which we'll talk about. Like, the soundscape of this movie is really intense and in creating a kind of atmosphere for the viewer. He plays, and I couldn't tell if he was making mistakes as he was playing or if he was supposed to be just playing like modern music and the judges or the proctors or whoever those people were just weren't into it. He seemed like he was getting more and more stressed out as he was playing. And then he blamed Jess for him messing up his own audition, or maybe it was his thesis presentation, or I don't know what it was. But, he's such a selfish little prick. What a dick. There it is. Oh, Peter destroys the piano. What a dick. Like, and then he destroys the piano, which I know sometimes you have to destroy instruments for films, but it just breaks my heart every time. And he couldn't even do a very good job of it. He used like a stool. What a dope. Anyway, didn't like Peter.
Yeah, he's the pumpkin eaterist of them all, the Peters.
He sure is. Barb is next on my list, played by Margot Kidder, who, of course, was Lois Lane in Superman 1 through 4. She also played twins in De Palma's Sisters from 1973.
Which you have not seen, but I have.
I haven't, but it's on my list now.
It's been on many our wheel.
Margot Kidder has had a really dramatic life and career. She had a car accident in 1990 that left her temporarily paralyzed. She had a really public nervous breakdown in 1996 stemming from bipolar disorder. So a very hectic life off screen. She had some of the craziest lines in this movie.
She was so good.
She was the epitome of the bad girl. But we have this opening scene at the beginning where she's on the phone with her mother and she's about to get ready. And this was really some beautiful writing. So she's on the phone with her mom and talking about, oh, I'm going to see you. I'll meet you there. And then she says, oh, I can't come. And clearly her mother has canceled their Christmas plans to go hang out with her new boyfriend. And Barb says, you're a real gold-plated whore. You know that, mother? Which is just amazing. And then Barb proceeds to get shit-faced for the whole rest of the movie. Just keeps going and going. But because we have that original scene with her, I have great sympathy for her the whole time.
Well, and there's other aspects, which maybe you're going to get to, that, she puts on this really strong front for a lot of her social interactions, but then we see a couple of cracks in her armor.
Oh yeah,
which really that's the way you create depth in a character. I feel like.
Oh yeah, and she's comic relief. You've got her yelling at the moaner on the phone. Also, I have not heard the word cunt in a movie from 1974 before, and she dropped it in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And I was like, whoa.
She didn't, did she?
I thought that was her, yeah.
No, it was the caller. The caller was saying it.
Oh, I thought that she called him that.
Maybe she did after, but he said it like several times. Either way.
I thought she called him that, and that's because I wrote that down. I was really surprised. But
no, he definitely said it several times in that first phone call where all the girls are listening. And whether she said it or not, to just having anybody saying it in 1974. I mean, you had The Exorcist in 1973, which had some vulgarities, which was pretty new for American audiences and American films. But this really amped that up real quick.
Oh, yeah. And then that was quite a lot. Then there's the conversation that Barb is having with Claire. Claire is nervous about getting these obscene phone calls and mentioned a local girl had been raped. And Barb says, darling, you can't rape a townie, which is obviously an incredibly controversial line take, just kind of dripping with internalized misogyny, Barb's kind of shock humor, a really classist and just gross sentiment overall. But this is Barb, right? Like, she's sharp and vicious. When she fools the sergeant into believing that fellatio is a new phone exchange, humiliating him in the process. Barb is taking her pain, her internalized pain, and pointing it out at the rest of the world in a really visible way. And some of it's a little funny, like when she's serving booze to kids at the party, and she says, I think the little bugger's snockered, son of a bitch. She just keeps kind of going and pushing the edge. And then there's this scene that I think is the one you're talking about when they're at the house, maybe 2/3 of the way through. And she says, why don't you all just blame me for Claire being missing? Yeah,
well, that scene starts with her talking about there's a turtle that can have sex for 3 days.
Right.
And it's kind of this, and Claire's father he's there for dinner with the other sorority members and Mrs. Mack. Mm-hmm. And she sort of just kind of goes into this, and I think she can tell it's making him uncomfortable, and she's kind of getting joy out of that. And she's obviously very intoxicated. But then it turns into what you're saying, where she saying, you all think this is my fault, that kind of thing.
Yeah, very, very beautiful, kind of coming back to that seriously wounded, abandoned, vulnerable, insecure person that we only get a glimpse of at the very beginning. Margot Kidder did a really good job with Barb.
The other character thing with her that follows that up, too, that I thought was a really interesting touch was her asthma attack.
Yes.
Jess runs in because she hears Barb sort of coughing, yelling, whatever, and she's having a hard time breathing, which is obviously a very, in a good movie, show us, don't tell us, shows us that she's not as strong maybe as she leads on. Not that asthma is like this big, huge weakness, but from a visual storytelling perspective, I think that was the idea, that she has this ailment that she's dealing with, and that she's not all just this tough broad.
She's an asthmatic smoker. She's smoking like a chimney the whole movie. And so again, making these she is turning her trauma out towards the world, but also towards herself with substance abuse and substance use. So Barb, and of course Barb has one of the most iconic deaths from this film, the crystal unicorn foo, where she is brutally murdered by Billy.
We're going to get to that in a little bit too.
Okay, where will we get to that?
In my new section.
And there's a new section. Okay, perfect. Never mind. I'll skip that then. We've got Lieutenant Ken Fuller, played by John Saxon, who has been in hundreds of movies where he often plays police officers and detectives, including Nightmare on Elm Street in 1982. He was in Tenebrae in 1984. He was in From Dusk Till Dawn, a bunch of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. In this movie, he plays a detective. He's friends with Chris the Townie. He is the competent cop who is foiled by Sergeant Nash, played by Doug McGrath, who is our incompetent cop and a dismissive prick who does not listen to the women and screws everything up. So we've got those two guys. Mrs. Mack.
Yes.
Marion Waldman. Not a very extensive career. She was a stage actress. She did some writing for several TV shows. So Mrs. Mack hiding sherry everywhere in the house. Why not whiskey? I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of effort.
For sherry.
To be, well, not for sherry, but a lot of effort to be drunk.
Right. Like,
I guess I don't know, but I get the idea that sherry's not as strong as some other liquors, right? It's a liqueur kind of.
I think it's a wine.
Yeah, like a cooking sherry.
Yeah, it is. It's a wine. It's not a hard liquor, but it's her thing. So I said at the very beginning when Mrs. Mack came, I looked at you and I said, I want a prequel movie with Mrs. Mack. Like, how did she become the house mother for this sorority? And then later on, we get to see her room and we see a picture of the McHenry sisters. She was like a singer at some point with her sister. She was some sort of performance artist. And I want to know more about Mrs. Mack.
Return of the Mac, that would be another name for her story. I read somewhere that Bette Davis was offered that role, but she declined.
Oh, man, I didn't see that. That would have been great. Mrs. Mack did great, though.
Yeah, no, I can't see somebody. I wouldn't want Bette Davis in there.
Yeah. Marion Waldman did a fantastic job. Really, really fun role. Very fun. Some great lines. At one point, Mr. Harrison says, I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking and picking up boys. And she goes, tough shit. Like, she's great. Speaking of Mr. Harrison, what did I write? He does bald masterfully. He looks good. He's hitting the head with a snowball by a bunch of kids. I feel like that would happen differently in nowadays, 50 years later.
Well, first of all, the kids would be filming it.
True. They would be. And they'd be trying to get a reaction. And they'd be like, do we hit him with 6 or 7 snowballs?
Yeah, that's not even talking.
Mr. Harrison's an interesting character. He kind of is balanced or reflected by Mrs. Quaid, the mother of the daughter, the 12 or 13-year-old who's found dead in the park. A mother kind of searching for her daughter, and a father looking for his daughter, right? She finds hers. He doesn't find his. He never finds his because of the way the movie ends. He is a very proper guy who doesn't want, and his daughter's pretty proper too. She's very virginal and kind of innocent before she gets killed very early on. So Mr. Harrison, and then Phil, played by Andrea Martin, Phyllis. She was a Mainer. She's born in Portland, Maine.
Huh.
So she's been labeled one of the funniest women on Broadway, New York Times. So she has a Tony Award, a bunch of theater awards. Phil is a nice side character. She kind of keeps it all together until the end of the night when she loses it. And then her death is really quick and kind of off screen, and we don't really see a lot of it. But Phil, she seemed cool, man. Cool. Even her, we don't have a lot of development on her, but she still was like a really nice, supportive sorority sister.
Gilda Radner was offered that role and accepted it, but she dropped out like 1 month before filming because of Saturday Night Live commitments.
Oh, interesting.
But I guess Andrea Martin was in Second City with Gilda Radner.
Ah, okay, cool. That's really neat. Yeah, she definitely has a great on-screen presence. Just a few more. We've got Chris Hayden, played by Art Hindle. Did you figure out who he was?
No, but I knew I recognized him. I never looked it up.
You did. He was the husband in The Brood.
Aha, yes.
Yes. So I also knew he looked really familiar. So I was combing through his listings. He was also in Porky's. A few people were. Doug McGrath, who played Sergeant Nash, was in Porky's as well. Chris Hayden has a really long career in movies and television. But yeah, the one that we know him from is from The Brood, which is a Cronenberg movie that we really like.
Did you look at all of what the Mr. Harrison was in? Sorry to interrupt. I felt like I had recognized him. I can look it up
Like
later.
a million things on TV. He was a Canadian actor. He was on a bunch of Canadian TV things. Nothing that I did look, and there was nothing that's popped out as something we've watched before.
Maybe I just recognize him from this. That sometimes happens too.
Yes.
I'm like, I've seen this guy before in this movie I've watched 5 times.
Yeah, all of these actors, many of them have had really long, busy careers in Canadian television, especially, and films. John Rutter played the Laughing Detective. He didn't do nothing about him, but I love the Laughing Detective. That's a pretty great character. In the brief time he's on screen. Claire Harrison, also a Canadian TV actress, Kitty Loving Virgin is what I wrote. And the most that she does is be dead in the attic, really.
She was in a movie that takes place in our neck of the woods that I watched within the last year called Curtains.
Ah.
Which we should watch as well.
Cool.
Another slashery movie, low budget, takes place in New England.
Cool.
But I was reading about her. What's her name? Lynn Griffin?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I have that in cinematography for some reason. Sorry. Go ahead. Is that all of the characters?
Well, then there's Billy, the moaner.
Oh, yes.
And I found the quote from Bob Clark saying, Billy is abusive and abused his little sister and was abused himself and probably killed his parents and probably locked her up in a basement for 5 or 6 years, Clark said. And I think she escaped and Billy doesn't like girls and it turns out Agnes doesn't like boys. Bob Clark just said that at some point in an interview. So that's how we really know. But we can get that from the movie. Don't tell him what we did, Agnes. We never see the killer's face. We see his eye. We see his shadow. We see his hands. But he is not fully human. He reminds me a little bit of the killer from Slumber Party Massacre, except we know way less. That we don't see him, but it kind of like the crazed killer, Sorority House Massacre, which we also watched recently, which has a lot of echoes of this.
Yeah.
A lot of echoes.
A lot of echoes of this and Halloween and some errant boom mic shots.
Yeah, it was really fun. Those are our characters. I do have just kind of a few random little bits and pieces about the plot and the story that weren't connected to any particular characters before I get into themes, but I don't know what your new section.
Well, let's see if it goes in with that. This new section, it's kind of an experiment.
Okay.
I think it works all right for this movie, and I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future, but for now, I'm calling it Murder Mayhem.
Ooh.
Or maybe subtitle Death, Rattle, and Roll. Or
All right. I mean, subtitles are cool, as we determined earlier.
Absolutely. So, what do you think happens at the very end of this movie? Don't say the credits. That's not funny. Ha ha ha. Very funny, Rachel, making your jokes.
You're right. How dare I? I think at the end of this movie, Jess dies.
What makes you think that?
Because they leave her, they abandon her, and he's still in there. And why wouldn't he kill her? And she's drugged up and she can't move to protect herself. And she's been abandoned because people are idiots.
Yes. And I think that the movie sets a pretty strong precedent for a phone call occurring after every death.
Interesting.
And almost every time it is Billy. A couple of times it is not, or at least on one occasion it's not. But that
Right.
almost adds to like the red herring of Peter being the killer. So I'll go through these kills real quick. If I'm missing any kills, certainly let me know. But I think I got them all here.
Okay.
I think potentially when we see the killer at the very beginning climbing up the trellis of the house, shortly after that is when we see the sorority sisters get their first phone call from the moaner and from Billy, and they're all standing around listening to the call. I think he potentially just came back from killing somebody that we don't even know about, potentially. It couldn't have been Janice, the 13-year-old girl, because she goes missing the next day. Originally, I thought he was coming back from killing her.
I have not thought about any of this, so I'm just going to go with what you
And
I'm
then,
going to trust you on this.
so the next death is Claire in her bedroom from the closet with the plastic. It's a strange clue game.
Yep.
And that is where you get a call from Peter. That's the call where he says, I love you, and Jess says, I know. So there's no call from the killer, but if the killer's always making calls from inside the house from Mrs. Mack's line, she is there at that time, and it might be impossible for him to be making a call. The next kill is Janice, the 13-year-old. So this is the next day. The sorority sisters are doing the charity event at the fraternity. And except for Jess, who's back at the house, she picks up a phone call from the killer. And so I believe this is after Janice has been killed, because shortly after that is where we see everybody at the police station, including Janice's mother, reporting that Janice is missing.
So Janice dies. Jess gets a phone call.
Right. And because maybe he only has the phone number for the sorority house. Then Mrs. Mack dies. She's told everybody she's going to visit her sister.
Right.
So her death doesn't really raise any suspicion, but we do see her get killed. And it's shortly after that Jess gets the phone call while Peter's in the house. He comes down the stairs after she has talked to the moaner, and she's now called the police to report these strange calls. And we see sort of the shadow at the top of the stairs while she's calling the police coming down, and it's Peter. So that's the post Mrs. Mack death call. Then Barb gets killed in bed. Maybe my favorite kill of the movie.
I mean, it's certainly the most dramatic.
The Crystal
Unicorn.
Which is my old band name.
Mm-hmm.
We're Crystal Unicorn. We're here to rock. And
pretty good.
That's by that time in the film, that's when they've set up the
trace.
The trace.
Right.
Lineman Graham. He's chasing the call all around that facility. And Jess gets the call from Billy. And that's the one where he says, you can hear him say the line that Peter had said earlier about just like having a wart removed.
Right.
Shortly after, like the next call right after that is Peter saying, don't hurt the baby. So the next death is Phyllis, which, like you mentioned, is very quick off screen. We don't really see what happens, but that is the first time that we see the phone call from the POV of Billy from Mrs. Mack's room. And it is after that call that they say the calls are coming from inside the house.
Right.
So that's the last chance the killer has to call, because we do see Officer Jennings, the police officers posted outside the house. We see that he has been killed, but there's really no opportunity for Billy to make a phone call at that point, because that's where Officer Nash has called Jess and trying to get her out of the house, and she goes back for her friends.
Okay.
The next death after that is Peter. No phone call necessary there because it's Jess. She's not making phone calls.
Right.
In fact, she's in like a catatonic state.
So we're just kind of, yes. So phone calls after every murder, almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minus the one where Mrs. Mack was in her room.
Okay.
Which was after Claire's death. Otherwise, there was a call after every single death. And then at the end, Jess is left home alone, like you said. It looks like Nash is out on the front porch, which he would not be necessarily the officer I would leave.
Nope, not at all.
And then, of course, the film ends with the phone ringing and getting louder and louder, the ringing of the phone. And I think that is the post-Jess kill phone call.
Okay. So
that's my theory.
That's a good theory. So murder and mayhem. I do kind of like this going through the deaths. Not every movie we watch is a whodunit, but pretty much every movie we watch has murder and or mayhem. So murder and mayhem. Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Any theories about that? That's a good place for those, right?
And I should say that, like, this is not like my personal theory. I just expanded on. I'm not the only one who's said this.
I was going to say, it sounds like you watched the whole movie over again or spent some time on some message boards.
I didn't spend time on message boards, but I took notes. And I've heard that before, that maybe there's a call after every kill. But I kind of added together that with the fact that it's kind of ambiguous whether Jess dies to prove that maybe she really is killed, and the movie tells us that with that final phone call. But anyway,
Cool.
that's that.
Nice.
We're still finding our sort of what we're covering, right?
Yeah, and I think finding where things fit and the different lenses to look at them through, I think that's one of the fun parts about figuring out our own rubric for breaking down these films. Because as we've said, we're not the first to be fans.
So what do you got for themes, theme
Got
girl?
So many themes. Thank you, English degree. Female empowerment and misogyny is probably one of the biggest ones. When Jess talks about so clearly wanting an abortion, I had to kind of look up what was the situation back in 1974, and it was not great. It was not something that was talked about often, so this was a really significant choice by the writer for Jess to have this attitude and also not to be like really apologetic about it or anything. She just was very forward and knew what she wanted. What did I write? Film full of idiot men who don't treat women as full people, but treat them as people incapable of making their own decisions. So a lot of the men are very dismissive of the women when they go to the police station to tell them that there's these crazy calls coming into the house. You can forgive Barb for playing a funny joke on Nash with the fellatio exchange because that's the only way she can get to him because he dismisses her.
He even told her to shut up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, pretty bad. And so kind of this like subversive getting back at them the way that they can. Jess's relationship with Peter, which first of all, again, we have established, I don't like Peter very much. And I don't know why Jess continues to be with him. But she asserts her right to have an abortion, and she asserts her right to have her own life against Peter's kind of casual, dismissive misogyny. There's nothing. Back in 7th grade, we had this acting group come into our science class, some sort of like improv educational group, and they were playing like 19th century scientists. And so I was in a group with a guy, with like a monocle and a top hat and stuff. I don't remember, like Marie Curie time or something. I don't know. But I remember he wouldn't answer me because I had my hand raised because I was a girl, making the point, showing what it was like for women. I, at 12 years old, was so angry at that guy. And Peter inspired the same kind of rage in me that improv science actor inspired in me at age 12.
That does make him a good character, though, right?
Oh, yes, because I have such strong feelings about it. So I think the film critiques this casual misogyny that a lot of women in that time experienced and plenty of women these days experience as well, highlights how women are dismissed and disbelieved by these male figures in positions of authority. You've got these strong female characters that kind of go against the grain, like Barb and Mrs. Mack, who are strong and brash and unafraid. Everyone is punished. Claire the Virgin is the first one who's punished. In most slashers, the virgin survives, right? But Claire, who's kind of the virginal, more innocent one, she's the first one to go. Barb and Mrs. Mack keep on going for a while. And Jess, the pregnant one, is our final girl, unless she's not.
Well, she's still the final girl, whether or not she lives or dies.
True story. Also, I thought this was really interesting. This film focuses on the female experience. This movie is about the women who are being stalked and killed. So the terror and vulnerability of being a young woman at that age. And it ends in a narrative that's focusing on the survival and the emotional landscape of the women and not the killer's motivations. So we're really unclear on why Billy is doing this. We do have what Bob Clark said about him. There's something about Billy, and he had a sister and he abused her, and maybe his parents, and maybe he killed his parents. And we don't really know about Billy because this isn't about Billy. This is about the women. This is about the women of the sorority. And that is our focus. The women of this movie are the central characters, not the killer and his motivations. It reminds me a lot of Slumber Party Massacre in that way, which is another really feminist film, even though it's got a killer with a massive drill as the main, and we see that killer in that movie, but again, don't know a lot of his motivations. He's just, crazy. So, and I think this film also in that kind of area, the feminist, anti-misogyny area, usually in slashers, we think about if you have sex, you die, but Jess was pregnant, as we've talked about before. So I think that's really interesting. And also Barb's very phallic death with the crystal unicorn, aforementioned. That I think also is a really interesting scene in light of what the rest of the film says about misogyny and about the dismissal of women and the viewing of women as objects or kind of subhuman. So
I think what makes this movie's treatment of these themes sort of elevated in a sense, I'm not saying it's an elevated horror movie or anything like that, but I feel like I've seen some more modern movies, more contemporary movies will deal with themes, not necessarily these themes, but maybe these themes. But they'll come out and they'll make generalized statements like, you can't treat women like that, would be something somebody would say to Peter, or
right.
And instead it shows the characters working within these social constraints or these situations that they're dealing with.
That's such a good point. Like when Jess is talking to Peter and says to him, oh, where is it? You can't ask me to give up all my ambitions and dreams just because your plans have changed. It shows us Jess being strong and assertive within the confines of the relationship that she is still trying to maintain. She doesn't want to break up with Peter, although by the end it seems like, I mean, well, if she does break up with him, I guess.
Breaks his skull.
Yes, exactly. But I think that we see this in the context of the situation, right? Like Barb can't make the police listen to her, so she just completely messes with Nash instead and humiliates him otherwise. She's working within the confines, which could make the argument, because I think it's true, that women have been working within the confines of restrictive structures for millennia. And it's only in very recent times that it's become more of kind of an explicit coming out. And like you said, like maybe in a different movie, a more modern movie, someone would directly confront Peter about his misogyny and call it misogyny and label it. But instead, Jess confronts it and subverts it within the confines, within the restrictions that she's experiencing. That's a really good point. I think I really like it. I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Forrest Gump.
That was great. You should take that one on the road.
I used to, when I was about 11 or 12, I used to get asked often to perform my Forrest Gump bench scene by many a folk, but I'm not going to do that here. And I haven't practiced it in a long time, so don't ask me to do it later either.
Well,
I need time.
Practice then. You're on notice. A few other themes or tropes: killers who hear voices or switch identities. Lots of our famous movie killers do this, right? Like we've got Norman Bates, we've got Jason's mom, we've got Buffalo Bill, we've got Hannibal Lecter, and we've, Billy on the phone playing all the different voices. I just thought that was kind of interesting, having these killers embody their victims as well as themselves or somebody else, right? So I don't know what you thought about. I was trying to think of others. There's definitely more out there.
Well, it is interesting that, we started this whole show with Scream, which of course is the caller who is often calling from near or inside the house. But they had cell phones and they're using a voice changer. And when it gets into later films, it becomes like a voice modulator, like a voice clone, sort of. Like in Scream 3, I can remember the killers using one that could mimic other people's voices.
Oh, right.
So, although slightly different, still in the same vein. Who else? I'm not sure, but I think those are some good examples.
Yeah, I noticed it and thought it was an interesting parallel. We've already covered the call coming from inside the house, I think.
Were you going to say a little bit more on that legend, or?
No, I think we covered it, right? We talked about the series of murders that occurred in 1943 and how that was kind of that was part of the inspiration for the movie, but that in the 1970s, there was an urban legend about the babysitter and the man upstairs. And so, but there's been a lot of other films like When a Stranger Calls and then Scream, as you said, like that's just a really common, the calls are coming from inside the house. So I had noted that. And adolescence and growing up, I think, is just another, which is often a big part of these horror movies. I mean, even just the ones we've talked about, The Exorcist, for example, a lot of movies that have these people who are between childhood and adulthood. These are older teenagers moving into adulthood, right? Like these are college students, not high school students. So they are on their own. And yet we've got Claire's dad comes back looking for her. We have Barb completely just crashing out because her mom has abandoned her, even though she's an adult and, doesn't need her mom, I guess, or shouldn't or something. But it's enough to just drive her into this crazy bender that results in her tragic death. So yeah, I think that was another one that I think I wouldn't mind picking apart a little bit more if I were going to do an even deeper deep dive.
Whoa.
But yeah, that's all I've got for themes. I think the female empowerment one is the strongest one and the one that I found the most interesting, that had the most things to kind of pick out and look at as I was going through.
Did you have a favorite character?
Mrs. Mack.
Yeah, I think she's my favorite too. Although, I mean, there's a lot to like about Mrs. Mack, Barb, and Jess.
Yeah.
I really like all of them.
Or maybe the cop who laughs.
Yeah, he had a great part.
The cop who's laughing at Nash not understanding the joke. He was great. Really did well.
What'd you have for a favorite quote?
Well, I wrote down a lot of quotes because almost anything Barb says is pretty great. But I think for a quote that I haven't mentioned yet would have to be from Santa at the volunteer event, where he says, "Ho, ho, ho, fuck." It's pretty good. Like with a kid on his lap. And since this is a Christmas movie, that was the quote I selected.
I really liked, in terms of humorous lines, and I don't have the line right in front of me. My apologies. I'm not even going to get up to get it. But it's when Mrs. Mack has been given that nightgown by the sisters for Christmas. And later she's up looking at herself in the mirror. She says, "I wouldn't wear this for liver transplant." Which I couldn't even hear when we watched the movie. All I heard was something about liver. So I looked it up and that's what it was. And I thought that was so funny.
Oh, that's really funny. I'm not sure I caught that the first time through either. But that's really great. Yeah.
For dramatic lines, I really liked the exchange between John Saxon's Lieutenant Fuller and Officer Nash when Nash is calling to relay the information that the call is coming from inside the house. And Fuller says to him, Nash gives Fuller the address from where the calls are coming, which is the sorority house's address. And Fuller says, "That's where the calls are being made to, not where they're coming." And then Nash is like, "That's also where they're coming from." It's like, dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. I think that's about it.
All right. Are you telling me what I think you're telling me?
Oh, I'm telling you.
Vibe check. Here comes John and Rachel, John and Rachel, John and Rachel.
Doop-a-doo.
We talk movies and it's Christmas. Something rhymes with Rachel.
Nothing rhymes with Rachel.
Bagel?
I mean,
everything bagel.
Oh, I do love an everything bagel. Gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Por favor.
Gluten-free. It's a good one for my Scottish accent, which is very limited.
It is, but I'm glad that's the phrase that you can say.
From now on, whenever we're any place and I'm ordering something for you that needs to be gluten-free, that's how I'm doing it.
Amazing. Into it.
So, I'm going to start with a little bit on the cinematography in this movie. We've got a really intimately shot movie, a lot, where most of the movies are within the confines of the sorority house. We've got a lot of close conversations between characters. The director of photography in this movie was Reginald H. Morris, going by Reg Morris. He was a British-Canadian cinematographer. He began his work as a camera assistant in the 1930s and 40s. Before beginning his director of photography career, once he moved to Canada around 1955, he's got a really long list of credits, including several other movies he did with Bob Clark. I think we found between actors and other film crew and all of that, they seem like they've sort of kept a team together for a lot of this. But he was the director of photography for Porky's and Porky's 2 and A Christmas Story. He also, not a Bob Clark movie, but he did additional photography for Superman in 1978. So maybe he just couldn't get enough of working with Margot Kidder, though I don't know if he shot any of her scenes. His work was nominated for 3 Genie Awards over the years for Best Cinematography, first in 1980 for Murder by Decree, 1981 for Phobia, and 1984 for A Christmas Story. Interestingly enough, he's the younger brother of cinematographer Oswald Morris, which this is not Oswald Morris's movie, so we're not going to talk about him much, but he worked a lot at Pinewood Studios, which we've talked about in the past, and he's an Academy Award nominated cinematographer for his work on Oliver, Fiddler on the Roof, and The Wiz, and he won Best Cinematography for Fiddler on the Roof. But back to Reg. In this movie, Morris is playing with voyeuristic tones, obviously, often through the recurring point of view shots, which between Halloween and Friday the 13th, we've talked about quite a bit. He also often positions the camera to show the characters from the perspective of the quote-unquote other, like long shots of the camera peering at the characters through the window. It just really gives the movie sort of that creepy tone where you're kind of always unsure what's going to happen, what are we looking at, and what's the purpose. You also get static scenes of a character going about their business with the camera sort of lurking from behind an object, peeping into the privacy of others, or watching in wait. Were tropes that were used a lot in this film. They were not invented by Clark and Morris, but this film certainly helped popularize these tropes, which are still used all the time today.
Yeah, I would say that if cinematography is a language, which it is, right, it communicates to us as the viewer that when we see a point of view, we are now trained to think that it is the killer or something bad that's going to happen, right? So we know that there are cinematographers who play with that and directors who use that to kind of subvert our expectations at this point. But this was one of the first movies to do that, not the first. I know Peeping Tom, which we still have yet to see, does a bit of this, right? And then Halloween obviously does it too. We see it all over, and then Friday the 13th. So, but really this was a couple years before Halloween. And so we know that it inspired some of these other classics that have influenced the genre.
Absolutely. And Clark was really prepared in his filming of this. He meticulously drew out storyboards of the key shots, which he brought to the set each day. And I have notes on just a couple of specific shots here, but the shots involving the POV shots of Billy scaling the house were accomplished through the use of a rig designed by the camera operator Bert Dunk.
All right.
And it was basically attached to his head, and he actually climbed the side of the house. I'm not sure they would do that nowadays. You know, regulations and such, safety. Puh.
Pshaw.
Forget about that. If you thought the 80s didn't care about safety, take a time machine further back. That's what I always say. Another fun fact. I'm doing fun facts now. Claire's death scene was shot with a handheld camera in a real closet. They accomplished it in only a couple of takes. Her surprise reaction when Billy jumps out was genuine because she didn't know when to expect him to jump out, which really is sometimes like the biggest scares. You know it's coming, but you don't know when.
Yes.
And the shots of her in the rocking chair in the attic, she actually wore a plastic bag over her head for extended periods of time for those shots, which I feel like they could have cut a little hole somewhere, but sounds like they didn't.
Right?
But she credited her swimming ability and thus her ability to hold her breath for a long time in making those scenes fairly easy to shoot for her. She didn't have complaints about it or anything like that.
Well, that's nice.
And she said, I could also keep my eyes open for a long time without blinking. So perfect role for her.
Seriously, great casting.
That's sort of what I had on cinematography. Any special effects notes?
No, not really. For cinematography, there was one shot I really liked when Mrs. Mack is holding her new nightgown, and it's like quickly cross-cut with Claire being suffocated. So there's a lot of really neat little cross-cuts like that where they move from one to the other. And then again, in Barb's death scene, when we're going back and forth from the singers and just being kind of in the moment with them, listening to them sing, and then flashing over to Barb being killed. So those were some of the things I noticed. Given that this is a Christmas movie and we are in the Christmas season, I did want to point out the Christmas vibes, kind of the ambiance.
Yeah,
there.
it's so good.
Like, and I asked myself, what is it that gives it Christmas vibes? Because it's not a story about Santa or Jesus or anything like that, but you've got the lights everywhere, snow on the ground. One thing I was thinking of is that Christmas and the holidays create disrupted routines, which are kind of this like fertile background for miscommunication and missing people, right? So when Mrs. Mack goes missing, everyone was expecting her to go to her sister's house, her sister that she used to be in a singing duo with, that we get from the background. Again, storytelling through the film and not through the dialogue, but they don't know she's missing and dead in the attic because it's Christmas and she was going somewhere. And even Claire, no one thought twice about not seeing her until her dad said she was missing because they all just assumed she had left. So even just kind of that hectic, unpredictable atmosphere of Christmas gives it that Christmas feeling. And then there's Santa, the Christmas carols, like Christmas is kind of all in it, even though no one like talks about Christmas or presents or anything, right? Like they're doing, I don't know.
It's not the point of the movie, but it's the setting.
Right. So you've got Barb is over at the fraternity house doing the gift giving and getting kids drunk, right? Like, and that's a character development point for Barb, not it's a part of the plot. Like it could have been something, I don't know. Yeah, that's exactly it. I really liked it.
Like this film could have taken place basically any time when a large amount of people were going to be gone, I think.
Could have been the end of the year.
Or spring break or Thanksgiving break. But I think the Christmas setting really adds a nice additional tone. I love the way the Christmas lights, those old Christmas lights look on film. They sort of all have like halo around them.
Yeah. Which
looks real nice. I have a bit of astigmatism. And so sometimes I get that naturally with some lights, but I really like how it's portrayed in this film. It seems while so much of this film is creepy, the Christmas part is kind of cozy.
Yeah, creepy, cozy.
Creepy, cozy, and cold, because it also does seem quite cold where they are, which is Toronto in real life.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So that was that. Well, and part of the vibes are my one and only special effects note is that there was a scarcity of real snow in Toronto. So art director Karen Bromley meticulously preserved what snow there was to make sure that it was there for the background shots.
How do you preserve snow?
No idea. That was the only sentence I could find. There was very little on effects. The only other effects note I had was what you just talked about with Claire, with the plastic bag over her head. So, but really, even though this, there were brutal kills, but they're not graphic or gory. Like when we think about, gosh, we just watched Dead Snow recently, and there's so many special effects. Like a really gory, violent movie has lots of injuries and things like that. And we had some of that. But again, kind of like Halloween, we don't get a lot of close-ups, right? There's a couple strangulations.
Certainly a little more than Halloween. But
more than Halloween for sure. And even though a lot of it is not quite as, I don't know, not as realistic, or they don't focus on it as much, it still would have been shocking for audiences at that point. But probably pretty mild for a 13-year-old, let's say.
Yeah. Oh, she would find this movie so boring.
So boring.
I'm just still imagining this woman or some like rent-a-cop with a gun out, just marching back and forth in front of what remaining snow there is. Anybody comes near it, he's like, hey, don't get near the snow.
This is our snow. That's pretty great. What about music and sound design in this movie?
Well, for music, the film score was composed by Carl Zittrer, who, again, was part of this team. He composed the scores for Porky's and A Christmas Story. And, well, it is, I think everybody kind of notices after Peter's recital or his performance for his grade or whatever you call it, his
Performance.
Yeah. A lot of the creepy music, and I don't know, I'll have to look for it better next time we watch it or listen for it better. I don't know if it was doing it before his performance, but after that, a lot of the sort of the creepy music almost sounds like it could have been part of Peter's piano recital.
I wrote discordant piano soundtrack like Peter's music. Yeah, I noticed that too.
So Zittrer created this sort of mysterious music by tying forks, combs, and knives onto the strings of the piano to warp the sound of the keys, which is pretty great. Then he would distort the sound further by recording it on an audio tape and then making the sound slower, slowing down the speed of the tape a bit.
Cool.
The audio for the disturbing calls, if you want to move on to that next.
Yeah.
That was performed by multiple actors, but there was an actor by the last name of Mancuso, which I don't have the first name here.
I thought it was Nick, because I looked that up too.
Nick Mancuso, that sounds right. But Nick Mancuso did a lot of it, and director Bob Clark did some, but they had other actors to get all those different voices. And a couple of times, the voices like overlap a tiny bit for just a brief second, which would not be possible for one person to do, obviously, but it didn't take me out of it whatsoever. But apparently, Mancuso, he said that he stood on his head during the sessions to compress his thorax and make his voice sound more demented.
Cool.
Which I didn't know that was a thing, but I'm going to start doing that whenever I call my family.
I love that idea.
They'll be like, John, are you standing on your head to compress your thorax again? I'll be like, oh, you got me. But Mancuso spent only 3 days recording dialogue for the character, with Clark encouraging him to improvise with the character's voice. And not unlike what we called Peter's music, Mancuso called this the experience avant-garde.
Yep, that makes sense. I did have one more thing on the music that I had put somewhere else, but when the carolers are singing "O Come All Ye Faithful," they do a descant, which is my favorite Christmas Carol descant, which is weird. I know everybody has one, and it's not a very original favorite descant, but you know.
What's a descant?
Shit. It's a higher line that is usually sung over the last verse of a hymn or in a choral piece. It's like one or two voices that do this high part. So in "O Come All Ye Faithful," it starts it starts with the soprano line, but then it goes above it. And anyway, never mind. It's my favorite, and it was also the soundtrack to Barb's death, and I was like, that sweet, sweet descant. If my sister ever listens to this, she'll know. We used to sing the descant together. Anyway.
I'm more of like a descant kind of person. You're always so negative with your descants. Descant do that. Descant do this.
It's true. It's true. Also, the ticking sound, there's a ticking sound that we hear. And we were kind of talking at one point about whether that was the rocking chair upstairs, like Claire rocking back and like rocking, but it sounds like a clock, but it's kind of not. There was like all of these everyday noises that were used that make it feel like you're there, like makes all the creaking in the house. It's like, oh, is that just the house settling, or is it someone coming? There was a dog barking. There's kind of sirens in the background. All of that contrasted with the really like squishy killing sounds. Just sound-wise, this movie really adds to the creep factor. So I love the sound design on this movie.
Absolutely. They did it right.
Sure did. That's all I got.
Speaking about making noise, can we move on to the open mic portion of this?
I think it's time we do.
Well, our gimmick for this week was, what is it called?
1 minute window.
1 minute window.
Mm-hmm.
So we each separately picked a 1 minute section. We don't know I don't know what the statistical odds are that our songs are about the same minute.
Well, I don't think that every minute has an equal chance of being chosen. And so I think there's probably a handful of specific minutes throughout the film. I think there's actually a fairly high chance that we've chosen the same one, but I'm excited to find out.
All right, well, we'll find out in just a moment. Let's flip to see who goes first.
All right, let's do it.
Here we go. Call it in the air. Heads is the writing side of this pick.
Okay.
Flicking now.
Heads.
It's tails. I think that might be the first time I've won the pick toss. I will let you go first. It's Christmas time, and I want to hear your descant.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's get set up.
Alrighty, here we go.
Okay, here we are. The 1 minute. So for my minute, I chose from 1:04:03 to 1:05:02. Do you know what minute that is?
That is the minute of the best minute of all.
The best minute. It was the minute that caught my eye the most during this last watch through. It is when the carolers are singing, as we discussed. I love that hymn, "Oh, Come All Ye Faithful." And the carolers singing juxtaposed with Barb's death by Crystal Unicorn. So it is from that minute where Jess is in the door, smiling, kind of taking a moment to enjoy the beauty of Christmas, juxtaposed with Billy's murder. It is also the 1 minute where we get the most character development for Billy that we get throughout the entire film. We learn the most about Billy, I think, in this 1 minute. So this is called Adeste Fidelis, which is O Come All Ye Faithful in Latin. And Adeste Fidelis means come faithful ones, which we have translated to O Come All Ye Faithful. And I told you I really like the descant. This is, as you know, not everybody knows, but I have a long history in church music. And so this is kind of a church hymn-like song about a murder. This is Adeste Fidelis. On this blessed evening, ere the sacred morn, celebrating birth, though death comes far too soon. Twisted mind and twisted thoughts, twisted words made flesh, playing out his twisted games, tortured mind now rests. Adeste Fidelis, those who still have faith, joy and hope, sorrow and loss, day to night to day. Secrets lie in hiding, for years they lie in wait. Sister sweet and brother dear, for you it is too late. Shadow falls across her face, crystal shining bright. Children singing sweet his songs for this her final night. Adeste Fidelis, those who still have faith, joy and hope, sorrow and loss, day to night to day. Life and death are fleeting, night and day are gone. Red and green the glowing lights, hear the discordant song, hid behind the melody of this holy night. A babe born in the morning still cannot make this right. Adeste Fidelis, those who still have faith, joy and hope, sorrow and loss, day to night to day. Adeste Fidelis.
Very nice. Did you want to try to take it again, or?
No, we can include that. The little, I mean, this is real. This is the open mic, right? So the cat came in, and one of our cats, Morgan, either really likes it or really gets mad when I sing, especially in my upper churchy octaves. So she jumped in my lap and tried to hit me in the face mid song, which is appropriate for a church song about a murder.
Well, and if you want an example of that, a few weeks ago you put out, or a couple of weeks ago at least, you put out a video on our socials of you trying to sing which song? Which?
It was the Descent song, so that would have been like a month ago or so when, Morgan punching me in the face while I was practicing my song. So she just did that again. So if you haven't checked us out on social media, there's your reason to see a cat hitting me in the face. Yeah, did you like the descant at the end?
Very descantian.
I know. I told you I was excited about that descant and how much I loved it. So
no,
that's
that was very clever, and that's something that would be fun if that were like in the movie, because you wouldn't necessarily, unless you're like really paying attention. And some movies have that kind of thing. This movie didn't really.
Right. This movie uses just Christmas carols, but I know what you're talking about, where the song has to do with what's on screen, but not everybody pays attention to words quite as much, I guess. So that would be kind of fun. I've played many, many church services in my life, so coming up with a chord progression, actually, you make fun of me for my chord progressions, and a lot of them kind of come from hymns since I've been playing them since I was 10 or 11 years old. So there it is, Adeste Fidelis, our first Latin-titled horror movie-inspired song.
With more to come? Is that?
With more to come. Maybe there'll be more. Maybe I'll do a whole church. Probably not. Horror and church, I think they go together. Some other people do too, but most folks not so into the both.
The both. All right. Well, now we need to get me set up. I'm on guitar.
All right, let's do it.
All right. This is my song inspired by Black Christmas. A little different direction than your song. Also a different minute. So very different inspiration. My minute is and this is from the Peacock stream, so I'm not sure if that affects the exact time or not, but I'm at hour and 19 minutes to hour and 20 minutes. Took me a while to get the exact minute I was kind of hoping for. This minute basically starts from Captain Fuller, John Saxon, Nancy's dad from Nightmare on Elm Street, walking out after he had just been at the recital room where he saw where Peter had kind of destroyed the piano and all of that. But it starts with him like walking out of the building. He's been called back to the car because they've got another call from the caller. And also just prior to this minute, we had seen the lineman tracing the call. So within this minute, then the lineman basically is calling somebody else and is saying, I've traced the call. It's coming from Group 140, Terminal 55. And then dummy there, Sergeant Nash radios Fuller in the squad car and tells him, hey, the call's coming from 6 Bedford Street, which is the sorority house. And Fuller's like, no, you idiot. That's where the calls are going to. And Nash assures him, no, that is also where the calls are coming from. So that's my minute. I think it took me longer to describe it than it actually did to take place. And this song is called Terminal 55. Somebody crazy, he dialed you to occupy your mind. You might be late for saving. Now we know we're nearly out of time, because the calls are coming from the line inside. No one knows what he is saying. All we know is that he's threatening your lives while we had them tracing. Now we have an emergency tonight, because the calls are coming from the line inside. Yeah, the lineman's done his running, and we're running out of time.
We never could have guessed what he would find. 'Cause the caller's clearly cunning, and he'll come for you in kind. We pray that we will get to you alive at Terminal 55. Because he put down the receiver. Now we have to take that as a sign he intended to deceive her. And now he looks to claim another life, because the calls are coming from the line inside. And now we know we've been a step behind, 'cause the lineman's done his running, and we're running out of time. We never could have guessed what he would find. And the caller's clearly cunning, and he'll come for you in kind. We pray that we will get to you alive at Terminal 55. Maybe they're mistaken. The information that they've taken has gotta be wrong. But you're telling me what you're saying. For this game that he's been playing, he's been in the house all along. 'Cause the lineman's done his running, and he's running out of time. We never could have guessed what he would find. And the caller's clearly cunning, and he'll come for you in kind. We pray that we will get to you alive. We pray that we will get to you in time. We pray that we will get to you alive at Terminal 55.
Okay, so many things bouncing through my mind. One, your chords feel like a warm blanket around my soul. And what I mean by that is your guitar playing, as soon as you started playing, just kind of like filled me. You've got so many layers, so many depths. I love the sustained notes, all the kind of like really rich harmonies in your guitar playing. Amazing. Man, and then there's that moment when you cut out and it's just vocals on that last chorus. I don't know if you saw me dancing around like an idiot or if you were like really focused on your playing, but I had my eyes closed and I was listening, so that drop hit me really hard. Obviously, this is clearly the one that you need to demo for next week. I want to hear this again multiple times and with even more filling it in. But wow, that was so great. That's another one that we could play at like a show and be like, this is inspired by Black Christmas, but it wouldn't matter. Like, it's still so good.
Well, thank you.
I really liked it. If you can't tell.
I really enjoy this one as well. This one has been a lot of fun to work on. One of my favorite songs of all time is called Wichita Lineman.
Yeah.
By Glenn Campbell, which the fact that there was a lineman and I got to throw that in there was a little bit of a tribute, I guess, to that song. But
it was really great. And there was one more thing.
And like Wichita Lineman, which this was not on purpose by any means, but it never goes to like the major root ever, which is the same thing that Wichita Lineman
You have mentioned that about that song before. You've since I've known you for so long. Yes, of course that song has come up and you have mentioned that. I don't know that song as well, so I didn't notice the connections, but it does not surprise me.
There's no connection beyond the word lineman.
Right, I know, but there's still I should have made that connection at least. It's a word thing. I actually, as I was listening to you play, was remembering the summer before we started dating, I did a cross-country trip by myself, and John and I had met. We met that June maybe, and I did the trip in like early September. So he'd been coming to open mics, and he gave me a copy of his album. And one of the CDs that I listened to on that cross-country trip, it was maybe a 26-hour drive. I split it between 2 days. Was your album. And for some reason, this song in particular brought me back to listening to your, what was that, 2010?
7, I think.
2007, John's 2007 album, Picture Perfect, that you can listen to on Spotify.
But yeah, it's definitely I was thinking that too, that it's probably the closest out of all the songs. I mean, they're all me, and we get our writing changes as we get older, but I think that's the one that's probably could have been on a subsequent album.
It reminded me of it, but also is much, I think, because you are older than you were when you produced that album, even more rich and kind of. That's why I can't wait to hear you give it the treatment, the production treatment.
Well, excellent. Well, we'll plan to do that then.
Cool.
And because I don't know how to do church music.
That's fine. Nobody really wants to. If you guys really want to hear that song again, you can listen to this episode again. That is not the kind of thing we're going to make a single or music video out of at any point. I might try to play it in church sometime, see if anybody notices. I won't do that. I'm not going to do that.
Well, we're losing light, so let's move on and wrap this up.
All right,
Black Christmas.
Let's do it.
All right, we're losing light.
We sure are. This close to the solstice.
Yeah, we lose light too soon these days.
Too soon.
Too soon. But where could they find us on social medias?
We are at OMNLD Pod on all of your favorite social media platforms.
Yeah, so come follow us. Send us comments, questions. We'd be happy to answer them. We will respond. And we might even eventually do some sort of episode for those sorts of things.
Yeah, movie suggestions to add on to the wheel of horror, the big wheel, the feeder wheel.
Do we have an email address they can send?
We do. It's omnldpod@gmail.com.
Because I'm not much of a leave a comment thing. I really hope you do, because that's what helps the algorithms churn.
Yeah, reviews, comments, sharing, all those things helps this get into the ears of those who would enjoy it.
But you can always direct message us on any of those social media platforms, or you can send us an email too. We'd be happy to hear from anybody. But we know for sure that in 2 weeks we're doing Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yes.
To wrap up our December of 2025. But we don't know what the songwriting gimmick is yet.
That's true. We do not.
So let me spin for that.
Okay, let's do it. What's wrong with your wheel, John?
I missed the button and I just kind of like... And the wheel is making the noise. Our noise reduction sometimes gets rid of it, which... Freestyle.
Oh, nice. That makes sense. It's been a while since we've freestyled. Did you know that this is our 10th movie?
It's the 21st episode, so that would make sense because the first round was the top whatever.
So this will be our 11th song because we did a song in the first episode, even though we didn't do a movie. We had multiple movies in the first episode. So this will be our 12th song.
Like the 12 Days of Christmas.
Yes, that's where I was going.
Well.
Very exciting.
Partridge in a Pear Tree, baby.
Oh, I'm so happy it's Christmas. Okay.
All right. We'll see you with our ears. Well, with our mouths, your ears. I'll use my ears too. Whoa, no, we're falling apart again.
Oh, no.
We've 21 episodes. We haven't figured out how to wrap it up, but we're grateful that you're listening, and we'll be back next week.
All right. See ya.
Bye.